Have you ever gotten super excited to learn a new skill, only to feel totally lost a few weeks later? Well, we're going to dive into a story about what it really takes to push through that. It's all based on the personal diary of a designer named Nasai, who tracked every single day of his 300-hour journey to learn English.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked ourselves, right? Whether you're trying to learn guitar or a new language. Because let's be real, it's not just about putting in the hours. It's about your mindset, your method, and finding a way to keep going when you really want to quit.
And what's so cool about this diary is that Nasai didn't write it as some kind of expert. He wrote it as a fellow learner. He was basically sharing his private notes to create a roadmap for anyone else starting a new challenge. And that's exactly how we're going to look at it.
So where does a journey like this begin? It always starts with motivation. Before Nasai even learned his first word, he got crystal clear on why he was doing this. Turns out, he had 3 really powerful reasons pushing him. And you got to look at this mix of motivations he had. There's a practical, business goal for his brand, there's a personal passion for art, and then there's this deep, emotional reason, a regret from the past. It's that combo, the head, the heart, and yeah, even a little bit of pain that creates the fuel you need for the long haul. Okay, so his motivation is locked in. How did he actually start? You'd think he'd just start cramming vocabulary, right? Nope. He started by figuring out the right way to learn for him. And that's a step that so many of us just skip over.
Turns out there's a name for this in learning science. It's called metacognition. As Professor Inagaki puts it, it's about shifting from being a passive student to becoming the active manager of your own learning. And honestly, getting this concept is a total game changer.
This cycle right here is basically metacognition in action. You set a goal, you make a plan, you check in on how it's going. But here's the secret sauce, that last step, adjust the plan. It's not about a rigid path you can never leave. It's a flexible loop that you're constantly tweaking. And this is exactly what we see Nasai doing, right from the get-go. Before he started, he was researching. He wasn't just asking, what should I learn? He was asking, what do I actually need? And what's a learning style that works for me? He was his own project manager from day one. So, after all that planning, what was his big, ambitious first goal? It was unbelievably simple. Learn just 1 new word a day. That's it. It sounds tiny, right? But he knew the goal wasn't to get fluent overnight. The goal was to build a consistent habit. He was also focused on finding that perfect level of difficulty. Researchers call this the I+1 concept. Basically, real learning happens in that sweet spot where what you're studying is just a little bit past what you already know. It's challenging enough to be interesting, but not so hard that you just give up. Okay, so after 30 days of building that super consistent habit, Nasai rolled into a new phase. This is where those tiny daily efforts really start to add up, and he began to fine-tune his methods to make his learning even more effective. He figured out pretty quickly that just repeating a word and its translation over and over, it just doesn't work. The alternative, which experts call deep processing, is all about actively connecting that new word to other things you already have in your brain. So how do you actually do this? Well, Professor Inagaki breaks it down into 4 key strategies. You connect words to images. You group them together into themes or stories. You review them at just the right times, and most importantly, you actually use them yourself. Each one of those steps builds a stronger connection in your brain. And look at this. This is Nasai putting that exact theory into practice. He wasn't just memorizing a list of 50 verbs, he was learning them with their core images, forcing that deeper visual connection for every single one. He also added another critical piece to the puzzle, an output habit. Writing a diary every day forced him to go from just recognizing words to actually using them. And reading it out loud to check his pronunciation, that was a brilliant, simple way to get instant feedback and improve.
All right, but we all know it can't be smooth sailing forever, right? Every learning journey has a point where you just hit a wall. And after 2 months of really solid progress, that's exactly what happened to Nasai. This is the part of the story where a lot of people quit.
His diary entries from this time, man, they get really raw. The initial excitement was gone, and the daily practice started to feel like a total grind. That why that felt so powerful at the beginning was now getting seriously tested.
And this quote, this one is so important because it shows you that dangerous mental shift. At the start, making quick progress made him feel like a genius. But when things got harder, that feeling was replaced with this crushing self-doubt.
And then there's this feeling. I think we've all been there. The feeling that you're actually going backwards. that all the hard work you're putting in is just evaporating. It's an absolutely demoralizing feeling.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What do you actually do when the motivation is just gone and the whole thing feels like a chore? You can't just tell yourself to be more motivated. You need a totally different strategy.
Okay, so here's the toolkit for survival. First, you have to go back to your original why. Remind yourself why this mattered in the first place. Second, reward the effort, not just the result. Nisai's one effort, one reward rule is genius. And you have to take care of yourself, get enough sleep, manage your stress. And finally, you just have to be kind to yourself. Lower the pressure a bit.
So after getting through that absolute grind, that period of burnout, Nisai entered the final phase of his 300-hour journey. And this is where all that conscious, painful effort finally started to morph into something much more sustainable, an automatic system.
And this is such a huge mindset shift. The real goal was never fluency, not in 300 hours anyway. The real win was building a system he could keep doing forever, even on the days he didn't feel like it. It's all about the process, not some far-off finish line.
In the end, how did he measure his own success? It wasn't a test score. It wasn't about having a perfect conversation. It was the physical proof of his consistency. That notebook, completely filled with his daily work. That's what told him he'd succeeded. He had showed up.
So let's bring it all back to that very first rule he made for himself. Learn just one new word per day. It was never really about the word, was it? It was about the simple act of starting. So the final question is for you. What's the one tiny, totally manageable step you could take today to get your own journey started?